So if you follow the channel for a while, you know that I primarily shoot Sony and I also shoot Canon as well, but lately I've kind of been loving on Fuji. If you've been watching the channel, you've seen that last few videos have been Fuji related. My brother James is usually the one that shoots Fuji on the channel, but well, let me back up and tell you where it all started. I'm gonna blame Jesse Driftwood on this one right here. Yes, Jesse, this is your fault. I was watching one of your episodes and you had on a guest photographer on there and he was talking about shooting with an old camera. I remember him saying something like he got it for a couple $100s. So I instantly went to eBay and started checking them out. Now they were a little more money, so I'm assuming he bought it back a little while ago. So I started seeking out videos on this camera and really got wrapped up into the overall look of the camera. I just love the way that it looked. So eventually I ended up pulling the trigger on the X100F right here. Found it on eBay. Just the way it sets with the case and the accessories. Even after having the F, I just still longed for this new V because of the screen and it being sharper at F2. And long story short, guys, I have fallen in love with Fuji. I'm not leaving Sony by any means, but I just love all camera gear. I just love the gear, period. I thought that the V was going to satisfy my thirst for my newfound love, but it didn't. So, long story short, I picked up the X-PRO3, and I don't know how else to say it. I'm sending this one back. First, let me tell you how much I love the overall looks of this camera. I just think it's probably the prettiest camera on the market, although the V, I struggle between the two. I think overall, if you had to take into account every piece of the camera, I do think that the V is more aesthetically pleasing all the way around. Although the X-PRO3 right here, the front of the camera, the top of the camera, I love. Although the little plasticky pieces that would be for the grips and whatnot, to me, it's just not as pretty. I love the way they hid the screen on this camera. In fact, when my wife saw this camera, she said, "Oh, you left your film camera up here." So I didn't say much about it because, well, if she's watching this video, then now she knows I bought the camera, but yeah. So this is the model with the black Duracoating on it, and I think it's an absolutely gorgeous camera. A lot of people are complaining about it picking up fingerprints. I actually really like the way that looks. Not so much the fingerprint itself, but the discoloration that it puts into it just makes it look, to me, good. I like the way it looks like that. So the two downsides to me, I thought I'd be able to get over the screen. With the screen, let me say one thing. If you think that you can only shoot from the hip with it flipped down, you can flip the camera upside down and hold it up, and you can shoot up in the air, you can shoot low, and you can shoot vertical. The screen is in a little bit of an odd position, but it can be done. So once I flipped the screen out and I played around with it, I thought, yeah, this is not going to be a problem for me at all. But after playing around with the V, I've only spent 1 week with this camera, but I pretty much, every chance I had it on my hand. And I just simply could not get used to the idea that if I wanted to really change anything, I'm gonna have to either put my eye up to that viewfinder, or I'm gonna have to flip that screen out. And it doesn't sound like much because this camera's not really intended for fast shooting, but I shoot pictures of my kids all the time, and I want to be able to do that. And if that were the only downside to me, is having to flip out that screen to get any of the touch operations, if it had a D-pad on it, I think in this particular case it would be better. Even though I don't think it's missing on the V, it doesn't bother me at all. The screen's right there, and the swipe feature to me works totally fine. So I'm not missing that from the F to the V, you know. But this particular camera, the fact that it's not there and you only have a few custom buttons, if you're wanting to do you know, really any fast changes, you're gonna have to flip that screen down. And even if you've got it set for one of the quick buttons, you're gonna have to put your eye up, use that viewfinder as your screen to be able to see what you're doing. So if that was the only problem, I would not mind at all. I would go ahead and keep the camera. But I am noticing an additional problem with the camera, and I don't know if it's user error or not, but I can tell you that the images I'm getting out of the V, they're just far superior to what I'm getting out of the X-PRO3. These two cameras should produce the same image, seeing as how that's pretty much the same camera, just with different exteriors. But I just always get sharp images with the V, and even though the lighting conditions aren't always great, I don't expect them to be perfect every time, especially if the conditions just aren't perfect for it. But it's just a little hard to describe the issue that's going on with what I'm getting out of this X-PRO3. Now, maybe I got a bad copy. I'm almost certain I do. I don't think it's user error. When I'm taking the picture, it's showing the eye detection right on the eye. I always keep a fast enough shutter speed to freeze the kids because they move fast, so I'm always usually either at 250 or 500. Even with them setting down on the couch, I'm usually at bare bones minimum 1/25th of a second, and usually at 250th of a second. So I've got a fast enough shutter speed that should be freezing that action. It should be sharp, should be clear. I could use the same settings on my V and I get just a beautiful image. I mean, you could zoom into the eye and you could just see the reflections. You could see the detail in the reflections. You could tell that what you're looking at, you know, if you're looking at blinds or if they're placed by the window or something like that, you can actually see that in the reflections of the eye when you zoomed in. But with the X-PRO3, the images will look somewhat okay. They just don't have that same pop. And when you zoom in, even to 100%, you just see that everything's kind of soft. It's hard to pick up where the focus area is coming from, and everything's a bit grainy for no reason. I mean, we're not talking high ISO here, or just in general using a slow shutter speed and getting some blurriness like that. This is just different. I don't know what the problem with the camera is. And it really doesn't matter which lens I put on the camera, the problem still existed. I put the 56 on it, I have the 35, have both 35s actually. So both 35s I've tried out on it. I could send it back and get an exchange for it, but the fact that you combo that with the flip screen issue and the price tag on this camera, as much as I wanted this camera to be for me, I just don't think that it is. So I'm sending it back. If you guys want to see the pictures for yourself, I'll go ahead and link a few of them down below so that you can see the comparison between the V and this X-PRO3 right here. I don't want to deter anybody from buying this camera. I love the Fuji lineup. I think it's awesome. I just do think that something's wrong with this copy. If this thing were taking pictures like the V here, I would not be sending this camera back. With that said, I hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you got some value out of it. If you did, hit that like button, and if you want to see more from us, go ahead and subscribe. And if you really want to help our channel out, the best thing you could do for us is watch one of these two videos right here, and we'll see you guys next time.